Hello YouTube. I want to talk today about some things I learned when I was homeless. I spent a year living in my car in the recent past, and I learned a number of different things that would be beneficial to other people who were finding themselves in the same situation that I was in. One of them is you can tie blankets to the handles inside of your car and tuck them in under the sun visor in front of the driver and passenger side to block both light and the view of people who might want to cause trouble for you for sleeping in private parking lots in your vehicle. There's also on Amazon.com magnetic shades that you can put up inside of your window frame on your car or your truck or whatever you're staying in, if you're lucky enough to have a vehicle, that will almost completely block the view of other people. During the daytime, putting a sunshade up in the front and back window will help to both block light and greatly reduce interior temperature during the warmer months. It'll also keep people from seeing inside. You can shower by going to truck stops, and also by, more ideally, if you can get access, go to a gym and secure a monthly gym membership, because most gyms have showers for not more than $10 to $20 a month for a gym membership. And many of those gyms will allow you to bring guests too, if you're homeless with a significant other or family members or friends, and you guys are cohabitating in a van or truck or something like that. To do laundry, the best thing to do is wait not more than 3 days to wash any dirty clothes that you have, because they'll mildew and they'll mold. You'll have to throw them away. And you want to have good proximity to grocery stores if at all possible. Don't rely on fast food. Don't go to McDonald's and places like that. Get yourself a little Coleman brand camp stove and small propane cylinders. If you have space, get one of the 20-pound tanks, the big ones, because that'll go a lot further than the small cylinders will. That big tank will last you 4 to 6 months if all you're doing is cooking. Get yourself a few 1-gallon or 5-gallon jugs of water, those refillable jugs from the store, and some Dawn and a dish scrubber so you can scrub your pans and wash them. Use as little water as possible for that. Only buy the food that you need for each meal. Stay within walking distance of a grocery store if at all possible. It's good to take your feet, put your feet up. Your feet will get sore from resting on the floorboard, even though there's carpet or a floor mat down there. Whenever possible, elevate your feet. Make sure that if you're not showering every day, that you use baby wipes to clean your feet, because you can get a fungal infection. And the same applies to sanitary areas on your body, armpits, buttocks, pubic area. You need to be wiping down with baby wipes in those areas every day, because if you go 3 to 5 days without a bath, then you will be at high risk of developing a fungal infection. Sometimes it's faster than that. If you're obese, you need to do this even more often. You need to wipe down with baby wipes or get a shower even more often than the average person does, because of enhanced sweating where the skin meets the skin. Keep your car clean on the outside. Wash it. If it's collision damaged, don't stay in it. Don't sleep in a wrecked car, because it will attract police attention. It will attract attention from store security. This includes at places like Walmart and Ollie's. I know because I had both of those stores call the police on me at one point simply for being there. And I wasn't even sleeping when the police showed up. Don't stay in the same parking spot for more than a day or two. Move your vehicle daily. Most places with store security are going to notice that you're there within 1 to 2 days, and they'll call for a record to try to tow your vehicle if they think you've abandoned it. I've been bothered twice. I have been bothered twice by store security or police while boondocking somewhere in the past. I have shelter now, but if you're having issues with homelessness, I recommend saving cash by working a job. Use a third-party mailing address, like a family member or a friend. And if you don't have either one of those, get yourself a post office box and have all your mail forwarded there. Get it set up in such a way that you don't even have to go check your mail. They'll take a picture of it and they'll scan it for you for a little minor fee. Maintain your appearance. Make sure you're getting a haircut often. Never appear visibly dirty to anybody. Do not wear stained clothing. Don't wear clothing with holes in it. And don't have a vehicle that looks run down. I know that's kind of a hard thing for some people to understand, but anything that appears to make you look as though you're in distress will attract unwanted attention, both from customers at places that you're visiting and from the police and store security. I did gig work while I was homeless. I was not unemployed. I had a job where I was working 60 hours a week, and I kept having situations come up where people would almost run into my car while I was doing deliveries back then when I had that vehicle. And I put reflective tape on the outside of the car. That was not a good idea. You don't want to do that. Don't put any kind of signage or stickers on the outside of your vehicle if you're staying in it, because these will attract unwanted attention from store security and from police, especially if it's any kind of neon colored or firehouse colored tape. They're going to think you're a crazy person, and they're going to tell you to leave. They're going to tell you to move your vehicle to another property or go somewhere else. That'll happen quickly. I did that because the car was hit several times and I lost my front bumper and my hood prior to that work. But if your front bumper or hood come off and you're driving it around, you're going to draw an enormous amount of attention. Any kind of major collision damage to your car is going to make people think that you're in distress. I was pulling up to a Walmart one day as a customer, and this lady saw that my front end was damaged on my vehicle at that time. And I was with my family, and they walked up to me and they asked me if I needed a bottle of water. In another place that we were staying, a lady saw the others that were with me outside and stopped to give them $80, which was a blessing, but at the same time, she's like, here's this money, here's a blessing for you. I wasn't out there. But the point is, if you're anywhere and you're boondocking, staying in one place for too long, whether it's in a vehicle or something else, will attract a lot of attention. So make sure that you're not close to a store, like parked directly in front of it in the front row spaces. Don't stay in that one spot. Move your dwelling, if you have a vehicle to dwell in, every 1 to 2 days, ideally every day if possible. But if not, don't stay in the same space more than 2 to 3 days tops, because if they have site security, they're going to come bother you a lot of the time, especially in the poorer parts of town where they've had problems. And if you have batteries or space to get 12-volt batteries, you can use a pair of jumper cables to recharge batteries like that, and you can run a lot of your devices, recharge your phone, etc., off of spare 12-volt batteries that you have. If you network these things and have several of them, you have a battery bank. One 12-volt battery will run something like a box fan for 5 to 6 hours before it needs to be recharged again. And box fan really helps when you don't have full utility hookups and you're having to boondock somewhere. It's mostly for larger vehicles and other types of dwelling structures that are portable, but you don't need a generator. You can run a vehicle and you can recharge battery banks, networked batteries that are tied together, without having to plug into an AC outlet, using 12-volt jumper cables. It's going to take you about 2.5 to 3 hours to recharge a standard car battery that is attached to your battery terminals while the car is running. And yes, it does hurt gas efficiency. It consumes more gas to run a recharge like that. But if you have a whole network of batteries that are connected to each other, like a half dozen or a dozen batteries, you can recharge your battery bank and it'll last you for a couple of days with light usage. Recharging phones, running a box fan during the hotter hours, running auxiliary lighting, especially if the lighting is powered by LEDs. That's something that you can support off of 12-volt batteries for extended periods of time. I had to, on an emergency basis, one time, I had to spend 2 weeks boondocking somewhere because somebody caused trouble for me. And I didn't do anything wrong, but I'm like, look, I don't want any part of whatever y'all got going on over there. You know, I've got enough difficulties as it is with finances and having to work so much. Anytime you have a neighbor that is hostile to you, the best thing to do, if at all possible, is just relocate. And that applies when you are boondocking as well. If you have a neighbor or a security element or police in an area that are hostile to you, the best thing to do is just leave immediately from that place and keep a blacklist. Make a list of addresses where you have problems and save that list as places not to visit, do business with, or travel to again for any reason. Because if you have a problem like that, a lot of the time they're going to remember you. Another thing you can do is you can look for places that have complimentary showers. There are some parks, although they're a bit rare, where you can actually go and you can bathe for free if you can't afford a gym membership. But that usually requires a lot of driving. And you can reach out to local churches. Sometimes they'll have showers. Some college campuses, especially community colleges, have free showers for athletes, and they'll allow you to use those. You just have to figure out the places that you can access without having to swipe some kind of a membership in that case. It's good to have backup plans too. Don't just have one place that you can stay if you're having to sleep in a vehicle or anything like that. Always have a list of multiple backup options. Have contingency plans, because things will go wrong. People who don't understand how you got to be in the situation that you're in will try to cause trouble for you. They'll complain simply because you're there and they think that you're poor. Especially if you look really raggedy and you stink. If you smell bad or you're visibly dirty, people are going to complain that you're there. I lived some of these circumstances, and like I'd have somebody walk up to me one time in a business, and I told this lady that was trying to get me to open a bank account that I didn't have a place to stay, that I was homeless, and she was shocked. She just couldn't believe it because I was so clean and well dressed. And I told her, yeah, I've been homeless for 2 months. She's like, wow, that's crazy. And this was right after the pandemic hit, But I said, yeah, I got displaced from my home by crime, and my home is pending foreclosure, and I couldn't get legal aid with my family, so, here I am. If people start to pay close attention to you, or they begin to recognize you in a place, and they're like doing a double take and being like, I've seen you a lot around here lately. Where do you stay? Leave that place immediately. Move. Because most of the time, nearly 100% of the time, especially if you have a family, and they realize that you're homeless, they're going to call the authorities on you, and they're going to cause problems. You don't want to stay if you can avoid it. You don't want to stay in a public shelter, because your things will get stolen, and there's a lot of people who have other problems that are there. Mental health problems, people who are bipolar, people suffering various different kinds of distress. I remember one place that I was boondocking for about a month. There was a lady that would sleep outside in the parking lot. She was the only other person in the area that I saw that was out there that was obviously without shelter. And she would keep all of her clean clothing in a clear plastic bag. And she would just randomly yell very loudly in the middle of the night. She was talking to somebody that wasn't there, and she was yelling very loudly. 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, you'd hear very loud yelling, a lot of it. Same thing during the daytime, and she didn't know where she was, and she couldn't work. She was obviously somebody with very serious mental health issues, and it ended up being the case that the people around her, obviously including the authorities, knew who she was, but no one would help her. So you see, most of the time when people see that you're in some kind of situation like that, when you're in distress, they're not going to help you. If anything, they're going to add to your difficulties. They really don't care about what your problems are. They just don't want to be inconvenienced by them. And they'll treat you as a nuisance if they realize that you're lingering in a place for extended periods of time. Some restaurants will kick you out. I found a good place to go and use the bathroom when I didn't have a place was Whataburger. It's also a good place to shave your face and brush your teeth and wash your face and do some basic hygienic stuff if you need to. But don't sit in there in the bathroom and take a bath using their sink. If you can, just get baby wipes. That's always preferred if you don't have access to a full shower. But Whataburger has bathrooms in most places that are open 24 hours a day, and that is why it's a good place to go to use the bathroom if you have to do number 2, or you want to avoid possibly being seen and cited for public urination. And there's usually a Whataburger located next to most Walmarts. That's where you can find them. What else? You should never stay in one area for too long. Move between different towns if you have the capacity to drive and your vehicle's in good shape. If at all possible, move between different towns when you're boondocking, unless there's really nobody bothering you at all. There's nobody coming around and saying, hey, why are you here? As soon as somebody asks, hey, why are you here in a place, relocate. Leave immediately if you have the ability to do so. Do not stay there, because those people are going to circle back. The only reason they ask why you're there most of the time is because they don't want you there. They don't want you lingering around that business. Places like Walmart that have Barton security, don't stay there. Do not stay there. If you see that they're contracting with local law enforcement and they have police parked outside the store all the time, don't stay there, because they'll harass you just for being there. Even if you're not doing anything wrong and you haven't committed a crime, security and the police will tell you to leave. Don't tell people about your distress or your difficulties. Never advertise any of the difficulties or distress that you're dealing with. Don't panhandle or stand out there with a sign at any location that you're staying at. Always do that somewhere else away from where you're staying, because these will get you unwanted attention most of the time. The richer the area is, the more likely it is that somebody's going to cause a problem for you for any kind of solicitation, seeking financial assistance. Like if you're out there having to beg for money for food or to be able to do laundry, etc. I've seen this. I've witnessed it. Don't stay anywhere where there's high crime. If you're hearing gunshots or you're seeing like a lot of drug activity in the area, do not stay in that area. You need to relocate from there. These are all red flag areas. These places that I've described with security, with crime, drug activity. There's a lot of other homeless people out there. Don't stay there, because they will approach you and ask you for money, even though it looks like you're in a similar situation to theirs. The most desperate people don't have shelter at all, and they sleep on the curb, under a sheet, or on top of a box. And you really want to avoid those people if you are boondocking or if you're homeless yourself, because they're going to try to take from you. A lot of the time they'll try to steal things from you when you're sleeping. I have never been entirely without a shelter. I've always had housing of some kind. And whether it was a car or a truck or a van or something like that, I had something like that to stay in. I was fortunate in that sense. If you are somebody who's a victim of crime, Don't go to local authorities expecting them to help you with any of your basic needs. The police won't help you. Social services will make your situation worse. They'll just add to your difficulties, if anything, especially if you have a family. They'll try to put illegal demands on you, and if you have children and you are housing insecure, they will try to take your children from you. As a single mother, it might be different, but as a single father, they're just going to enhance your difficulties. If you have to go to borrow money from a pawn shop, then do not tell them that you are homeless. Do not tell them that your address on your driver's license, if it's different, don't tell them that it's different. Don't tell any pawn shop about any difficulties or hardships you're facing. Don't tell them that you're having any kind of, if you're having legal trouble, don't tell them about that. Don't tell them you're housing insecure. Don't share any kind of your business, anything with them. When you go to a pawn shop or anybody to borrow money from them, like a payday loan, do not share any of your hardships, because it'll reduce the amount of money that you'll get, and they might even call an authority on you, which will add to your difficulties. You won't be able to go to that business anymore to use them for assistance, simply because they judged your circumstances without understanding how you got in them. And they're going to add to your hardships. Pawnbrokers don't care. Payday loan places don't care. They're just operating a business. And a lot of the time, they'll give you an extra kick in the ass for sharing your circumstances honestly. Don't eat out of trash cans if you can avoid that. I never, did that. I never had to beg for food. I was fortunate because I always had income. But you can get all kinds of foodborne pathogens from spoiled food. If somebody has food that they're getting rid of, like from a buffet or something like that, it's different. But do not eat anything that you find cold in the garbage. This is some stuff that other people shared with me. Don't room up with anybody you don't know either. Even if you're desperate, don't ever do that. You never know what kind of person that person is. And don't expect that the churches will help you either. You can ask them for help. Don't tell anybody where you're staying. Don't ever give them your real-time location for where you're living. Even if you're just transiently in a place, don't tell them where you sleep, because rather than helping you, they might turn around and cause more trouble for you. If you seek help from anybody and they agree to help you, designate meeting them at their location or at a third-party location where you're staying, because they will try to enhance your hardship some of the time. Not always, but a good majority of the time. Well-meaning people are sometimes misguided, and they will involve third parties without communicating with you, and it ends up being another thing that adds greatly to your difficulties. It can fundamentally deteriorate your situation sometimes when people do that, thinking that they're assisting you or your group. Instead, they're actually adding greatly to your hardships in their own ignorance. You have to be very careful, especially careful who you trust, who you share information with, because they will try to make decisions sometimes without looping you in, and they think that they're doing a good thing for you, but in reality, they're actually doing something that's going to worsen your circumstances substantially. That's all the tips that I have for now. I realize that this video is 30 minutes, but those are some of the things that I learned from my time out there. And one other thing I wanted to add is you need to dress for the seasons. In cold weather, you can crack your windows, provided that there's no heavy rain or snow falling, especially rain though. And you can use that instead of running your car and running the AC. If you run your car, expect to have a substantial energy bill for each day that you run it. Every 8-hour period is going to burn between a quarter tank and half a tank of gas, depending on what type of vehicle that you drive. It's always better to boondock in the cool months like the fall or the winter than it is to boondock in the spring or the summer.